Today is another episode of 100 Days and Beyond, that special podcast where we speak to and engage with those individuals that are part of the mergers and acquisitions fraternity, but more so in terms of the post-merger or post-acquisition integration work, or raising of funds, or strategic rollouts, and so on. And where we're at right now is when we're looking at the way that the world is working, and the changes that are being thrown about, there's more and more need for people that are strategically aligned, that understand strategy, in addition to having a technical skill set. And having a technical skill set, hi Alan. So having a technical skill set in addition to strategy, technical skill set, when I talk about that, I speak often about things like your ability to do financials, your ability to do marketing, sales, and those sort of things, anything operational, for instance, or even engineering and that sort of thing. But in addition to that, to be able to think strategically and think as a leader in the boardroom, but being able to be in touch and connected with those people on the ground. And today we join. Thank you, Alan, for joining us today. Much appreciated. You know what I think? Obviously, technology is great when it just wants to work first time. But yeah, welcome today. I want to quickly go through, if you don't mind. I want to read the sort of the main section of your LinkedIn profile, Alan, just to give the audience a bit of an idea of who you are, because there's so much packed into such a small space. So I'm going to just quickly run through that. In your LinkedIn profile, you partner at N4 Partners, and we're going to talk a little bit about N4 Partners, about your strategy and so on. But what really stood out to me is this actual paragraph, and I'm going to read it, and then we're going to sort of unpack it a little bit, because I think it's fascinating. I think it's brilliant. But let's just have a quick look. So, senior board executive with 20 years of global strategic development and sustained profitable growth in multiple sectors. So, I mean, you start off with talking about sustained profitable growth and strategic development, but multiple sectors. And being a multiple sector person, you get an idea of multiple sectors, but you also get, I'm sure, when you work with specific clients, you get very, very deep and rich industry knowledge. But I just want to go further and talk about you being an experienced global CFO and C-Suite executive with a proven track record of operating within private equity-backed and public organizations with revenues in excess of £1 billion, driving year-on-year growth, shareholder value, customer satisfaction, and increased profitability through organic growth, strategic acquisitions, process improvements, and complex business transformations. I mean, that is one hell of a CV. And if I look at the rest of your experience, it's pretty good. And then you talk about operating at board level with strong multi-sector experience, being able to formulate robust strategic vision, acquisition strategies, being a champion of sustainable expansions. And that word sustainability comes up a lot, and I want to sort of just unpack that a little bit as well. Global markets, etc. But being a motivational leader who empowers others to generate new ideas, I thought that was pretty good, because I think in today's knowledge environment that we're in, I mean, we're relying more and more on systems and processes, and I would say probably a lot more automation than we used to. And now being able to think above the functional is actually very important. And then the last part, you talk about being able to position senior leaders in roles which play to their strengths, thus optimizing performance through people and imagination. And that's probably one of the first times I've actually picked up imagination as a key thing. So welcome, Alan, and maybe I'm hoping that that's given the audience a really good background in terms of who you are and where you come from, and that's fascinating. I mean, if I look at the rest of the profile, I mean, the depth and breadth of experience. But tell us a little bit about your journey, because I also picked up that you're a marathon guy, but an ultra marathon guy, and You need to be talking about that. We're going to touch on that near the end, but I thought that was fascinating. I mean, that's one of those 7-day events, or was it 5 or 7-day events at 250 kilometers? I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, we're going to touch on that.
Okay.
But starting at finance, that's
Yeah.
where I see your journey start. And then you went into strategy and then going into board level. Tell us a bit about that sort of, young Allan at school and thinking through like what's the journey look like in your head, and then how did it sort of pan out as you went?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably what I'll do is I'll look at it from both points. I'll look at it, as you say, almost the personal Allan and the Allan journey, but also the professional Allan, and how in effect that they both come together. So if you go back, to early days, sort of finance and accountancy were always a sort of, a bit of a passion at school. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. My mother had been in banking and sort of started to sort of sow the seeds of what the world of accountancy could look like. But even from a very early age, I still had focus in a bit of, if you want to call it, the deal doing side of things. So, even going back, early age of actually, probably amongst my peers at school, having the probably the largest and most profitable paper round, which from then then took me into a whole sort of series of journeys. When I learned to drive, I then set up a clothing business. I then got into club nights. At 19, I had a glass recycling business. Then, as I said, went into printing, club nights, then got into property. So as I was then, I start my early years of doing my, financial, accountancy qualifications. At the same time, I was getting a bit of life learning running alongside that. And probably early in life, I was, there's the saying that people, they don't plan to fail; they just fail to plan. And in my early 20s, that there was a book I read at the time, and I actually came up initially mentally in my head, and then down in a bit of paper, coming up with a life plan. And that life plan covered all aspects of it, from the things I wanted to do, to the jobs I wanted to do, to the experiences I wanted to have, etc. And there were certain milestones, and that plan went through life. So from a professional point of view, then I got a sort of traineeship with one of the energy companies in Scotland. I then went into the nuclear industry from there and finished my accountancy qualifications, and then moved eight years into to banking. But probably again early on, my I used to work with one of the ex FD of BP, and one of the advice he gave me, he said, look, by the time you're in your mid 30s, if you want to become that sort of C-suite executive, as a CFO or whatever, you want to try to get as much multi-experience across different roles. If it's finance, learn all the different aspects of finance and strategy and M&A, and that will then help you when you get into that sort of C-suite position of that. Okay, you might have only done something for a short space of time, but at least you will come at it from the point of view of an element of knowledge. So, during my time in both in the nuclear industry, and then I spent 8 years in financial services, that it was very much focused about increasing that knowledge and the sector knowledge and really the depth. And from there, I then went into consulting. But there was method in the madness with it, because I'd spent a number of years in industry, and then in financial services, having consultants come in, and I thought, what, sometimes these guys have not necessarily got the war stories and scars. And so I wanted to make sure the war stories and scars. Then I went into consulting. I became a head of Scotland for consulting for Logic at CMG, and then I was at KPMG, etc. there. So again, when I was going in to speak to clients, I was doing it from the point of view of, I've sat on your side of the table. I've got that war story. I've got the start. I've got the success. I've got the failure. Here's what you can do. And I've been very structured in my well, certainly always appears to be structured. My thinking structured. There's been a lot of luck along the way, but I've certainly tried to think about it in a sort of clear path of how it will create multiple options of all the things that I want to do.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's just some good advice, right? Early in your career as well, being able to get that exposure. I think something that struck me is what you've just mentioned now is having an idea, a goal, a plan, thinking through what am I doing in the next few years, and where am I going? What's the big end goal and end game picture? Did you ever see yourself getting into an advisory role. You know, you're sitting in the C-suite, but you've actually gone almost past that, if I could say. I mean, just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I probably, if you go back again, early in my career, I always wanted to become a CFO, an FD. That was my, I didn't have aspirations at that point to be the CEO. I always thought that the CFO cut across every aspect of the business, knew everything. There was no area of the business I couldn't touch, and I felt that the CFO is, really understood and really knew what made things tick, and was there as that number two in support to the CEO, but had a great depth and knowledge, and could really influence and shape the business. And once I got to that point, again, going back to my life plan, I always had the idea, if I didn't get quite to I always wanted to become a FTSE 100 CFO, and I knew if I didn't happen that, there was other ways, and I did actually think I would go back into advising and consulting. But if I look at the experience I've had, both in, I spent, 12, the organisation I was at before here, that 12 years in the sort of the private equity, but we were very much operationally hands-on. We took our experience and worked with the executive and the management team. So while I was still holding, non-exec or some executive positions within these businesses, even being the shareholder, it was still very much working and shaping and advising and supporting and ultimately driving that shareholder value and basically influencing and also helping people, take that business forward. So when we set up N4, which I know we can come back to what, we'll give you a bit more about N4, but it was really taking our experience as a team, but also from the fund, and saying, right, you know what, there's so many fantastic businesses out there that they're maybe at an inflection point. They don't quite need necessarily investment. They might need a bit of advice, but they basically need someone to hold their hand and pull certain things at that point. So what we're trying to do is well, it's investment and advising that we're doing. We do one-off projects, but it's really using our skill set as a team and our learnings to help these businesses along their journey. And sometimes it's just purely as that one-off bit of advice, or it's a bit of advice that could lead to investment, or it's being an investor in it.
Yeah, one of the other podcast shows that I do, I talk a lot about the hero's journey. If you watch the the movies that that we watch, I mean the Harry Potters and the Star Wars and all that, you have the hero going through ups and downs and roundabouts, and then you've got the Yodas, or you've got some guide or some aha moments and that they go through. And I think the advisor often is that Yoda to many clients, and I think that's a great place to be, and it is very rewarding. It must be rewarding, because you won't keep on doing something, I mean, with your kind of experience and knowledge, if it didn't at least give you some personal kind of return on investment, and not just a financial. Tell us a bit about some of those moments that you've gone through with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point is very valid in terms of that. I try to, the way we look on it is, we want to enjoy doing what we're doing. We obviously want to work with people that we want to enjoy working with, and you're right. The economics, if you tick the first two boxes, generally the economics of it will follow. And prior to the pandemic, that we very much looked at, we were continually looking at deals in America, South America, Australia, across Europe. We weren't actually looking what was right on our doorstep. Within, we're based in Glasgow. We're a team. We're, although we've got links into London with a partnership, but we're very much Scottish focused. And prior to the pandemic, I didn't really look at the businesses wrongly. Didn't really look at the businesses that were right on our doorstep. And so the pandemic allowed us to focus when we set up N4, and we very much focus on that sort of SME entrepreneurial-led business that are an inflection point. And recently, one of our clients, I was sort of telling them my story, and for the last 20 odd years, I would almost introduce myself as the professional Allan, and 25 years finance, strategy, operational, blah blah blah, but missed out the part of what truly who I am as a person. From going back to even my early roots, I talked about some of the businesses I've done myself, the things that I do outside of here. You mentioned that the running. So sometimes when when somebody's want to, when somebody needs help, okay, they look at the CV and say, right, okay, great, you've worked here, but it's very much about, well, wait a minute, it's the person I'm buying. Okay, that person might give me access to funds or experience, but it's very much having that connection. So what I've found is over the last sort of 24 months that, as soon as we've just told our story, the true story, rather than what's been that corporate story, you actually see people look at me or look at us slightly differently and say, do you know what, you guys are trying to do something different. We can see why. And from there, it's opened up a lot of doors. And I think, we're now, you mentioned earlier about the multi-sector, we're now, okay, prior to that, our first fund was very much in the industrial focus, but now we're involved from clinical research to tech to whiskey to property, a whole series of sectors. But it's really using our skill set over the last, as a team over many years, and that skill set is multi-transferable. There's maybe gaps where we'll pull in specialists to support us, but ultimately, people are buying you as the individual, you and your experience, and you and the team, and what we can bring.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that point about there's that's been a fundamental shift mentally for me, on a lot of people that I've spoken to, is that shift away from always wanting to look elsewhere for the better deals, for the better businesses, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about the localization of talent, using the local people that have a local knowledge about local markets, although you think global for your clients, but getting engaged with clients locally and helping them expand and grow. And I think that's a brilliant story. And that's really, for me, one of the positives that have come out of this whole pandemic shift. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, completely. As I said, wrongly or rightly or wrongly, we spent time looking out with, when we set up N4 back in early 2020, and and a few people were coming to us and saying, look, can you maybe help me with this? Can you maybe help me with that? And then we were trying to think really about what our strategy was going to be. And I touched on it earlier that as a PE guy or as an advisor guy, if I knock on someone's door, the Scottish market's fairly small compared to the rest of the UK. There's a lot of fantastic businesses, but smaller scale, smaller revenues, but still have huge potential, not just to nationalise but globalise. And they're probably been scared of, if Mr. Private Equity knocks on the door or Mrs. Private Equity knocks on the door and said, they're like, oh, look, what, we don't understand it. You're trying to steal our business, or I'm coming as an advisor. Oh, wait a minute, you're going to charge big fees. You're going to tell me, no. Whereas we've tried to come up from the point of, us as people and saying that, our mantra, look, if you're at that inflection point, look, we can actually help you in your journey, and we can structure it whatever way, we can give you whatever advice and find a way to help you take there based on our experience and our track record. And, it was an example of one business involved in the clinical research space. I mean, small in revenues, but phenomenally profitable. The owner manager there was, very skeptical of third party investment or advising. And he came to me and said, look, can you, I'm thinking of selling. Can you help me? Anyway, went in and had a look at the business and said, look, okay, can help you sell this business, no problem. But if I was you, I wouldn't sell. And the reason why I wouldn't sell is because what you're telling me now is that actually there's a lot of growth potential in the business by diversification and open up other location. I said, but what we can maybe do is bring in a partner to help de-risk you, but bring in smart money can then help take it to the next level. And you can continue in this journey for the next 3 to 5 years, and we can then exit at that point. So we went in, we took a small equity stake. We basically went in, restructured the management team, the location, brought in a family office, another PE fund, and then went in the journey of diversification. So now, that individual is now got, people around the table who are helping that business to take it to the next level. But that was purely based on the experience of it, but also our model. If you ask, if you maybe go tell our advisors, help me sell, great, they'll think it's a sale mandate, that's what we do and move on. Whereas our mandate was, look, we can go on that journey with you, and and great dividends for that individual, and now for the other shareholders that have been brought to the table.
I love that because I think the difficulty with narrowing your focus in terms of sort of being one thing means that you're missing out on the entire journey. And I mean, you must have heard the analogy of if your only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And unless you got the full toolbox, you got the full toolkit, and you know how to use the tools. I mean, it doesn't help you got a toolbox and you don't know how to use the tools. The tools are out there, the people are out there, the ability to deliver is out there. But it's that philosophy, I think, and it's also that culture of saying, you know what, this person or this company, this organization we're looking at is not just a transaction. It is actually a living organism that probably needs to be nurtured a bit. It probably just needs a bit of help here, there, and everywhere. And all of a sudden, you go from an organization, and you can literally leverage off the base of that the person has started, and do multiples of that. And those are true growth stories, because essentially that's what private equity does, but with an advisory component. I think that just takes it to that next level higher. I don't know if you probably have one or two case studies around that, or maybe you got a few anecdotes you want to share about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, and how we, as I said, and it's worthwhile probably actually saying as N4, how we actually, how we would describe ourselves, and we very much are that. We work with the SME entrepreneurial led business who are at that inflection point, and we're there to take them on the journey. But there's two parts to the business. The first one's the investment side. So we've got we're FCA regulated. We've got third party capital. There's a current run out fund we're working on. We're looking at future fundraisers. We're just about to actually launch a venture fund where we've developed an investability rating system round. So that's very much, if you want to call it, the third party capital side. The other side, you've got the advisory. And there's two parts to that. There's the traditional corporate finance, the M&A, the fundraise, operational execution, strategy, strategy execution, etc. Again, done on a one-off basis. We've worked from PLCs right down to startups across multi-sector. But where we sort of really see the value add is sort of the next layer up from that is what we call as our portfolio advisory, and this is where we are. We've got a number of multi clients that sit in that space. Remuneration to us is done in a variety of forms, from either project fees or retainers or sweat equity, or we take an equity stake or whatever. But we're going in that journey, and again, it's still it's multi-sector. And in the middle, we've actually got a direct investment arm where we self as N4 invest directly into businesses, and we've got a number of businesses that sit within that. But really, to your point in terms of moving from that one-off advisory project to the portfolio is, okay, you build the relationship, there's the trust. Our mantra is powered by partnership. But you appreciate at the start of any relationship, you've got to build up that trust and go on the journey. So the one-off project at times allows both the client and us to understand, can we add value here? Can they see the value we add? And then in turn, but we're very clear from the start is that we want to go on that journey. You get access. We're very fortunate at N4. We've got a team of very highly capable individuals. From the corporate finance, to accountancy, to legal, to engineering, to the entrepreneur, to the multi-sector, from analysts right up to CEOs, chairman, or whatever. We've got an advisory board. We've brought we've got our chairman's Benny Higgins. He's a titan of financial services in the UK. We've put in a human performance and well-being coach, which we can come on and talk about later. We've got an operational people, financial people, basically associates that work, so that when you engage with N4, we're a small team, but you get access to the whole team, and it is the team who are delivering that project and working with you. So when I'm talking about from my experience, or when one of the other partners or one of the other directors or managers, they're talking about from their experience as well as the team's experience of how we can actually help people on that journey.
Yeah, it's it's really sort of synergistic, sort of the true sort of bringing of minds. I want to sort of just get an understanding, because you had both the entrepreneurial background and you had the structured training, being a CFO. You know, it's all about debits and credits, and you know, books have to balance, and there's a structure and a process that has to be followed, and obviously there's compliance and regulation, governance, and all that. Yeah, the stuff that you really can't get around. And then you've got sort of more the people element, and the ideas and strategy and so on. And do you, I've seen certain organizations struggle with this conflict between structure and strategy, because they often seem to be almost the yin and yang of a business, because how much structure is important versus how much strategy, and at what point do I start thinking strategy and then structure, or do I look at structure and then look at what I've got and work out strategy? So tell me what your philosophy is. I know most people that I speak to have different views on this, and I'd like to get your view on it.
Well, I mean, you mentioned there from my training point of view, and then you mentioned it as an individual, and then from the experiences that I've had, that okay, the pillars of success are, of any business, are very much about, organizational structure, process and system, culture and people, and then I suppose the client stroke customer. And you've got to have a solid platform to begin. But if I take in the journey of N4, we were fortunate that we had a run out fund that basically helped us to set up the business. But we were very much doing both the structure and the strategy together. And I think one of the benefits of that was it allowed us to be relatively fluid in terms of our approach, and also look at, if I look back at what's happened over the last 24 months, not just the pandemic, but how N4 has developed. If we'd sat down at the start and said we could have come up with our strategy, look, and then put a platform around it, well, look, it's changed, and it's changing day by day. So I think very much you've got to have a solid platform, but it's got to be fluid, it's got to be dynamic. We've tried to create a relatively flat structure here, and so that in terms of experience, it's not about putting people in boxes, it's about being part of a team. We've tried to make sure that we're putting the right processes and systems that are dynamic to as we evolve and bring the business model on, but bring on the right culture. And I think that's important. I mean, we just recently we brought in a number of interns in, and just touching on a very quick story. We brought one intern who's just about to start university. He came in, and during his time in the first week, I'd been on to LinkedIn, and I was looking at Harvard Business School alumni class had recently done a class in the reunion in the metaverse. And so anyway, so I said to the intern, I said, what I'd like you to do is at the end of the week, give a presentation on the metaverse, what it is, and how we can use it in N4, and how it can help our business and our clients and the way forward. So anyway, this young person did an absolutely fantastic presentation. And when I was looking at it now, I see myself as very much as a change agent. I'm up for change. I believe in giving people opportunities and blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, I've still got years of experience, and but it's been ground into me in a certain way. And we need to look at all areas. So one of the ideas when myself and one of our partners got it at the same time and said, look, we need to find a way of actually tapping into, now this isn't new age thinking, but actually tapping into some of this young thinking. So one of the things we're about to roll out is that we're going to not just bring in a small number of, if you want, either like people at university or college or even apprenticeship, or just young people, different experiences, different backgrounds, and pay them a small amount of money each month and get them to do a little project and come in and just share their learning, so that we can actually start to see some of the things that the young are, and again, make me sound old, but but we need to be taking learnings from everyone, and what's happening in the market, different locations, different thinking, different ways of doing things, so that we can actually help the businesses we work with and our clients and our portfolio companies as we move forward.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely spot on. And if you had told me 3 years ago or 5 years ago, something like TikTok would be overtaking everything else. Metaverse is already one step further past that. But even doing the shorts, as they call them, YouTube has had to change. They're doing shorts now. Instagram is doing shorts, as an example, and all these technologies are shifting away from different types of engagement with clients and so on. And it's very, very interesting, because if you had told me sort of 3 or 5 years ago that I'd be interested in putting some content onto TikTok, I mean, imagine that. And all of a sudden it's like, you got no choice. And it's now the younger generation coming through. They're saying more than, I think it's just over 60% of their searches are no longer on Google or YouTube. It's now on TikTok. They're searching for things to help them and to advise them and all that on a platform that I would consider a toy some years back. Now it's become a proper player. I mean, even Netflix, which is a non-linear competitor to TikTok, has suffered, I think, from TikTok. If you think about, their viewership has dropped, and TikTok is just sort of going up and up and up. As an example, I mean, the metaverse is going to be massively interesting. And it's almost like, how do you keep at the sharp edge of things without losing the principles involved? And I think where I see, and when I look at your profile, I look at very specific things that you've managed to maintain in terms of the changes. And I think if you look back, hindsight is always brilliant. If you go back, Facebook only started, I think Facebook and YouTube only started in 2006. I mean, that's this century. And now it's like old. It's like, that's just really old. And you look at TikTok, it's brand new. But in 5 years' time, where will it be? I mean, things like Uber didn't exist some years back, and all of a sudden everybody's Ubering around. You even get your food by Uber or whatever it is that you use, the Deliveroos and so on. But if I look at some of the principles, so you've got things like, you drive year-on-year growth, but you talk about shareholder value, which is a core principle. So you got to drive that. Customer satisfaction, which will never change. Increase profitability through organic growth, which is critical. I think you can throw money at advertising and so on, but a company needs to provide value and needs to provide a reason for existence. And if you are growing organically, it's easier to scale on top of that to speed that up, but you've got to be able to grow organically. And then things like strategic acquisitions, which is critical, process improvements, which are those incremental improvements, complex business transformation. So that's when you really go and do a complete redo of the way things work. I mean, many of those have got core principles involved. And I'm a big believer in principles never change. I think Jeff Bezos, as an example, says, what are the things that will never change with a human being? It's people want things quicker, better quality, and cheaper. So those are core things that will never change. And I think, we can't lose just because there's the newest gadget. Is that going to still deliver the principle based that we're looking? When I look at your background, I think that's what sticks out for me is that operating at board level with strong multi-sector experience, robust strategic visions, acquisition strategies, and sustainable expansions. And if you can just talk around for me, sort of what do you think, if you could sort of pluck out a few things that stand out for you as core principles that have sort of steadied the ship for you? Because I mean, if you look at a ship, it's got a ballast, it's got a way of not bopping all over the place, but it's got a way of steadying it. What are your steadying principles, if you can share one or two of them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll come at it from a few points. I mean, one of the things I mentioned earlier about the principles and the pillars of success, I think, from the structure, process, and system, all of that is critical in a solid platform, which will allow you to basically go and deal with whatever headwinds or tailwinds come at you. I think that actually one of the things that we've always looked at is that how do we, we're living in a world of, continual change, without going into everything that's happening in the world at the moment, from Ukraine, cost of living, then going back to COVID, etc. But we, prior to that, we always tried to look at how could we develop a business that was relatively recession-proof, and one that could actually, it didn't always require, that acquisition to allow it to grow. It was one where, could we take, a regional business and globalize it? How would we go about that? How could we organically grow? So I suppose one of, our successes in the past was, we took a business which was, circa 45 million revenue, and over a 4.5 year period took it to, to in excess of 300 million. And that was done by about sort of 60% organic growth and 40% acquisition. But it was really setting out the strategy at the start of, but what you said there about, it's about the principles. But, if you take those principles, develop it into your strategy of, right, okay, where can this business go? And sounding obvious, it's about having that plan. How do we execute on it? Okay, it's got to change as you go through. But, trying to, based on the factors that are coming around, follow that plan, execute it, because you've put the plan based on experience. You put the plan based on market. Okay, you need to tweak it, and that's when in that example, when we took that business, it went from one manufacturing location to 9, went from 500 employees to 2,500, went from a presence in 25 countries to over 100. But it was very much following that. How do we create a sustainable business model? How do we, basically create the value for the shareholders that ultimately, shareholder growth over a 4.5 year period? Current investors want to at least double their money, treble their money over that sort of period. So how do we actually almost work back, but at the same time work forward to get there? But underpinning it all was those pillars. It was always about, people, having the right people, recruiting them, training them. If it was down to funding, how did we get the right funding structure? What was the right organizational structure, the right locations? Maybe we couldn't do it. Maybe we had to go look at joint ventures or agent agreements or whatever. It was basically just trying to, look at everything as a Rubik's cube, and how do you actually try to get it to the way that you want to get it, if that's all the colors have got to be the same.
And it's definitely a methodology. So, I mean, your foundation comes from being able to look at things as a, that's one of your core sort of, I think, attributes is the ability to take all these moving parts that are constantly moving in a moving market and navigate this entity through, the ups and downs and so on. When I look at some of the other things, I mean, you talk about being a motivational leader and so on, and empowering others really to generate new ideas. I mean, that surely is one of the core principles for me in what you do is to be able to bring the right team together and to let them generate the ideas, because no one person has all the ideas. Well, I haven't met anybody with all the ideas, but you rather get the team together, and you talk a lot about N4 having a really good team together, and a lot of the idea generation or creation comes from having the right people in the room. Yeah. Would you agree?
Completely. I mean, the words when you replay it, the words that I put down. I mean, ultimately, okay, I put there, a motivational leader. People, it's other people who make that decision and basically judge that. And that's based in feedback, based on experience, that what people have told me. But it's very much about empowering people and giving people the opportunity. And as you say, not one person has the ideas. Not one person can make it happen. But sometimes you've got to take that experience and pull the people together and help them see the way forward. And openness. And I mentioned earlier, like we try, okay, within N4, but of course there's a structure. People have titles. People have manager titles, director titles, whatever, partner titles. But ultimately, it's very much about a team. And and you win as a team. You fall as a team. At times, there's a philosophy. People rather would win as an individual but fail as a team. Well, to be honest, I'd rather win as a team, and if it means I fail as an individual, but it's the team. Well, that's what will move us forward. I mean, we're creating a business here that will help our clients long past hopefully long past my ownership of it. It's something that goes into the future. But if people don't, you touched on it earlier. If people don't come in to do a job and enjoy it, they shouldn't be doing it, or we should look to change it to make sure that they do enjoy it. Because the one thing that the pandemic has all talked about, is we've all learned from it. It's about getting experiences. It's about appreciating what you have. It's about using your learnings and sharing it with others. And it's about trying to move everyone forward, because that is the way that we will win.
Yeah, and I think what I sort of deduce from a lot of the things that you're saying is that your philosophy, a lot about that is about engaging something bigger than you as a person. It's about the collective. It's not so much just about how well is Allan doing. It's more about how are we doing? How are we doing as a team, and am I doing enough to help my team perform?
Yeah, because one of the things we did at the start of the pandemic, so we brought in a human performance and wellbeing coach. And people say, "Well, right, what is that?" It's maybe the latest buzzwords or whatever it is. But so if this was a friend of mine who I'd known for a number of years. He was ex-military. He was one of the few people to be captured in Cambodia by Khmer Rouge and set free. He was badly injured in a landmine explosion, but he now he's a motivational speaker, and he works with organisations. So I said to him, like, over the years we'd worked together in terms of either helping me or maybe doing some of the things with the businesses. And I said, look, we're now well, I didn't know if it was the middle, beginning, or the start when we spoke. But at the start of the pandemic, I said to him, look, we've got all these people working from home in our business and the businesses we're involved in. How do we actually look at this that helps the individual, helps the business, helps the individual, and helps the businesses? And so what we did was, every few weeks we got, so Chris, basically we did a online Teams call to say, right, okay, where are we at? Look, okay, the world's not quite as bad as what we think. How do we actually, and and it was almost, how do we become I wouldn't use the language that he used, but it was, how do we take it from being, the negativity of the pandemic, but actually be a pandemic blossom, and get that into our way of thinking. And so that was something that we did, and it was there for for individuals in the team, or the team as a whole, to basically make sure that the individuals were in the best frame of mind. They felt the best they could for their families, for where they were, for what was happening in life, but also at the same time help us within the business and the businesses that we had in our fund, which we're trying to maximize shareholder value for, and we were looking to exit, etc. All at the same time. So it was having the right, the right toolkit, and that toolkit is involves people, and we keep saying it, their experiences to then help each other, and that that was that was one of the things that when we did that as I suppose as a PE business, certainly from what I've been told, there wasn't many other PE businesses or advisory businesses that went out there and recognised that and said, okay, here's an individual who's actually got some real life life experiences that are, and actually is turning it into a way to help motivate the individual that's focused not just on what's happening in the workplace, but it's helping them at home and family.
Yeah, and I think human beings suffer from this recency bias. It's only what's recently happened to me is what makes me decide on what my next step is. And we very seldom, as human beings, and I think it's just the human condition, able to look at things from a big picture, sort of, let's step back. There are actually worse things than some of the things that are busy happening. There are actually things that are out of our control and we can do nothing about. All we can control is what we think, what we can do right now, and so on. And I really like that. I mean, when you and I had a conversation some weeks back, I think that was one of the things that sort of stuck out for me, was that sort of feather in your cap in terms of an N4 as an organization, and yourself as a leader in the organization, to say, look, there's this sort of cake is nice, but cake with icing on it is even better. Depends. That's just an analogy. I don't know if some people can't have sugar and blah blah blah. But if you think about it just rounds things off, doesn't it? Smooths things out. It actually makes things better. And a lot of times it's mindset. And I want to come to some of the experiences that or mindset when you're doing the marathons, and you gotta go through just briefly what it is that you do in terms of the marathons, because I think that's fascinating. I also love ultra marathons, but I've only done the furthest I've done is a 90-kilometer. Um, and I've not done what you've done. Okay, so I want you to share that, but I want you
Yeah.
to bring that back into business in terms of sort of mindset, because there are times when you out there putting yourself out there. There are times when potentially a little bit of doubt could creep in. Something could go wrong. Things could go that have happened that are not expected. Um, and I mean, if you get a visual, and I encourage the audience to go and have a look at the actual event. I'm going to leave it to you to explain and to run through, but it's amazing. But I think there's a lot of life lesson that you can bring back into business out of that experience. Just share a bit of that experience with us and sort of what you've brought back from that.
Yeah, no problem. And by the fact you've said you've done a 90K, I presume from your homeland you did the Comrades, but we can talk about that later. But so the event you're referring to is it's the Marathon des Sables, which CNN classed it, I think, as the toughest foot race in the world. I mean, that's up to other people to judge it. It was tough. I'm sure there's things tougher, but it's an event. It's a multi-state event. It's 6 stages over 7 days. It's equivalent of they say it's 7 marathons in 7 days. It's based in sub-Sahara in South Morocco, over multi-terrain from sand dunes to dry riverbeds to rock paths. It's self-sufficiency. You carry everything from the week. So basically, from when you arrive out in the desert on the Friday, from the Saturday afternoon, it's basically whatever you've got in your rucksack when the event starts on the Sunday morning to the following Saturday. That's it. The only thing you're given is water each day, and at the end of each day, they've basically set up what's a bivouac, in effect, a campsite where they put almost a bit of carpet out, and a bit of a bit of carpet, and and almost like a canvas cover with sticks, and that's your tent for the evening. So all your food and everything else is in your backpack, and it's self-sufficiency. It's you against you. That's it. The background to how I ended up doing it is, it's maybe a very sad admission from being a west of Scotland male, but I was really drunk as a result of an evening spent drinking with one of my friends who was ex-military, and he'd completed it before, and he said, "Look, a bit one of those ones. I don't think you could do this, Alan." And and being that sort of stubborn person, went and looked at it, said, "Yeah," had a few drinks, said, "Of course I can do it." Looked at it the next morning, having never really ran a 10K, although I'd done a lot of sport. I thought, "Do you know what? I can do this. You know what? It's if I can get the mindset right, I can get my body into shape. I can do this." So I basically, a year and a half later, I was standing in the start line. I've completed the event twice, but standing in the start line, the hardest part of any event, it doesn't matter whether it's a 5K, a 10K, a walk, a game, or whatever. The normal person, I class myself as a normal person, gets to the start line, have at least relatively prepared, relatively understanding what they're going to do. Well, it's 70, 80, 90%. Okay, there's people out there that'll be done every bit of training, they'll have everything nailed, that's fine. But the normal person gets to the start line understanding and having prepared for it. So the hardest part of any of these things is getting to the start line. It's the time spent before, it's the preparation, it's the training, it's the long hours, it's thinking about the nutrition, it's understanding your kit, it's the getting up in the cold mornings or nights or whatever to really prepare to get you there. And I went there in the basis that I can do this. This was about me. This was about if I can achieve this, I can achieve anything. And I've always been of that philosophy that we can achieve what we set out to do. So the event itself, the first time I I did it. It was, you're going into the unknown. As I said, I completed it. It was tough. You go through extreme highs and lows, and I'll relate it back to business shortly. But during the extreme highs, you're in the middle of going up sand dunes. There's sand everywhere. There's about the event's been in existence now just over 30 years, and each year there's about 800 or 900 people do it. So the extreme highs have seen incredible the surroundings round about you where it's basically right just outside Quartazat, a place called Quartazat, where you do the event, which is where they actually filmed some of the Star Wars movies. So you can get the idea of some of the locations if you're a Star Wars fan. But so you're going through these extreme highs of thinking this is fantastic. You know what? Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm achieving. And then you go to extremely low, very dark places, thinking, how can I put one step in front of me? And thinking, what am I doing here? And one of the stages was that year was 90 kilometers. So it was the longest stage. It sort of builds up and comes back down over the 6 stages. And I'm thinking, I've went through 3 days of hell. I'm now standing. I know if I can get through today, I'm going to finish this. But standing in the start line, thinking I've got 90k, my backpack's getting lighter, but my feet are just shot. I'm going about to, hit 10 kilometers of sand dunes, then rock paths. I had the tears coming down my face, if I'm honest, thinking, what am I doing here? This is why? 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 I have nothing to prove. And you then, so if I then jump forward to the finish line. So at the end of the end of the day 6, you cross the line. And crossing the line was a sense of anticlimax. You'd went through extreme highs, extreme lows, but you'd went in a process. The process in that case, well, it's in business or whatever, that process for me was, get to the checkpoint, get water. Are my feet okay? Then get to the next point at night, get food, water, feet, sleep, get up, checkpoint, whatever. And you go into this process for like 7 days. So when you actually cross the finish line, it's like, and somebody almost puts a medal around your neck and you're given like a poly bag with like a sandwich in it or whatever, and juice, and you're sitting there and you sit down and you think, is that it? And it's not actually until afterwards that you actually, and okay, the pain goes quickly, the memories last forever, but you actually think, you know what? Look what I actually achieved. Look what I did, and the learnings that you take that both as a person, but also you can, as a person how you live your life, but you can take into business and share. But people always go, oh, I could never do that, or I wouldn't want to do that. But actually, it's not that. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's just putting the right preparation in place. And you know what? The right mindset, you will get through it. You're going to have extremely tough times. Of course, you are. Nothing in life is they they say is easy. But but it's you see the true person, and you it's about being stand up to account. So you cross the line, and actually, and everyone round about you, or your family or friends, when you're back, it's fantastic, and you're going, I'm not really getting this, yet, but it's that then does sink in. But it then, it does actually help you when you're helping with some of the young guys or girls, and and the people in the business or businesses, and actually saying, the learnings that you take from that of preparation through to achievement, and the feelings of high and low, and what you do in crisis, you can apply that into business. And and given a couple, one or two business analogies, I mean, everyone has challenges, and some of the deals, you learn more from deals that don't happen than do. I mean, like, if every deal went well, that'd be great, but that's not reality. So you need the war stories and scars. And I went back to the Sahara for the second time. And the reason why I went back a second time was because I wanted to take the learnings from the first time and some of the errors that I made, so that when I went back to it, I could actually then go to try to push myself to my full potential, and having and taking the lessons to be prepared, and knowing what I was going to expect. So it's a bit like from a business point of view, the deal that fails, that deal's failed. Why did it fail? Okay, we'll learn from it, right? How do we make sure that doesn't happen the next time? Or the business that's got a challenge, right? Why did it happen? And and it's just trying to have, and you touched on it earlier, of having, the methodologies in business, or the methodology in training, or the methodology of putting in something based on that experience, a plan that works for you or your business or or what you're trying to achieve, and that's it. So yeah, so I'm considering going back for the third time, I must admit. So
Yeah, I would encourage you to do that, because I think the first two were just practice runs for you.
yeah, don't know if I don't yeah, don't know if my family would agree, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, I mean, but I think there's in these types of sports, not everyone can do it, of course, but it would be to take on a challenge that's bigger than you and to overcome it. And you learn that resilience, but you also learn that there's no need to panic. There's no need to the mindset. On every Friday, and it's moving now to Wednesdays, but I have a Q&A session where I talk about professional services businesses and so on, where we look at different things about how does a professional service business scale or grow, and the ups and downs of having a professional service business, because it can be, you could be flying one day and the next day you could be like, oh shoot, it's gone, it's cancelled. All of a sudden you've got a payroll to meet, or whatever it is, or a good client of yours is now annoyed with you, whatever it is, or something just, or there's a regulation that's changed. You planned it this way and now there's a different thing that's happened. So, don't panic. It's, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Go through your paces. Just be patient, be resilient, overcome the pressures as they come, because you know what, keeping at it is what gets you through.
Yeah.
Don't stop. And I think what I've seen in a lot of businesses through the pandemic and so on, where your characters that are resilient, those that can think past the I think the pressures of the moment, those, when it feels entirely overwhelming, where it feels like I can't do this anymore. And those people that are able to break through that were the ones that were the winners. Those that gave up or stopped, sometimes you just have to put the next foot in front of the other. And I think that's probably what I take from your experience is like, your feet are sore, you're in pain, you probably have a few blisters, you probably every part of your body is aching. Just waking up is already a difficult thing in the morning, or you probably didn't even sleep well 1 or 2 nights. I mean, there could be a whole lot of reasons why you could have quit. You said, look, you know what? I've done 3 days. I've done well. It's okay. Yeah. I'm going home. You could have done that, I'm sure, or maybe not, or maybe they drop you off, and then you got to make it to the end. I suppose you can get on a camel there. I think that's how it works. You can get onto a camel, they'll take you back.
As long as you beat the camel at the end of every day, then you're allowed to stay in the event for the next day. But you're right. Look, it was one step, and even simple things like counting in my head, something in the dark moments, saying, you know what, I'm going to count to 20 steps, and if I need to stop for a break, that's fine. You know what, and just it was that like continual one step at a time to get you there. But and it's interesting that and you touched on it as well, that for me, that okay, I've achieved that event, I've done it, that's great, but it was done for me. But it's amazing when people do hear that you've done it or speak to you about it. It actually, you can it almost, it's a bit of wait a minute, you can actually achieve what you want to set out. Most people go, oh, I couldn't do it, and they'll think, well, maybe you can. And so there's a bit more. It maybe helps people spur them on to do something. But as I said, it's one step at a time. It's not, it's the old analogy. So
yeah, and it's highly relatable, because I think everyone has had a type of challenge, whether it's physical or otherwise, in their lives, and they've overcome it. But you chose simply probably the most difficult one, just to prove that you could, to yourself, I'm sure, but and to your mate.
Yeah, well, exactly. I only did my first official marathon after I'd done the first Marathon des Sables. I hadn't actually done a proper official marathon until after. So yeah, I decided just to jump in at the deep end and make sure that.
Why not? Why even do a marathon? Okay, so we're at the end of the hour, and I still want to have Allan, an opportunity just to hear about N4, what you do for clients, and how people can get a hold of you. Should they want to engage? Should they want to sort of make use of your services and so on? Tell us a bit about N4 and how people can reach out.
Yeah, as I said, look, we're a Glasgow-based firm, but we very much, we've got experience of operating globally. We've dealt in global businesses, built regional businesses and globalized them. We are, looking to expand across the UK. We've worked across multi-projects, both Scotland, UK, and beyond. Our website's n4partners.com. We're on LinkedIn, N4 Partners. The types of things, look, we really want to work with clients who are at that inflection point. They're going in that journey. They're going in that, as we refer to the NDS, the multi-day journey. And every day is going to bring different experiences. It's going to require different skill set. It's going to require sounding board. And we're there. We're an experienced team of individuals from multi-sector, multi-background, very very diverse in thinking and train of thought, and we're using our experience to help businesses grow and go on that journey. It could be the one-off project from the traditional corporate finance, or it could be from the PE side looking for investment. Again, we have access to third party capital, but we very much want to work with that. It can be the larger organisations, but we see it as the SME, entrepreneurial led business that are at that inflection point, and we're very much powered by partnership in what we do.
Yeah, because it's in your name, N4 Partners, and it's all about partnership and so on, and working together. It's not us knowing more than you, and therefore you need to listen to us. It's let's join you. Let's put our arms around each other, and let's go in the same direction. So I really like that. It's been a fascinating hour spending with you, Allan. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for contributing. Do you have a final sort of one or two sort of golden nugget takeaways as a final word?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of them I said earlier on. I mean, it's the obvious one that people don't plan to fail; they just fail to plan. And it's like anything; it's setting your stall out about where you want to get to, and how you want to achieve it. And and the chances are, if you do that, you will execute, you'll deliver, and you'll know where you want to get to. But probably the last one for me is, like, in everything that you do, it's about having fun. It's about working with people that you want to work with. And you know what? If you're chasing economics, if you're doing the first two, the economics will follow. And it's about trying to make a difference every day. So yeah, that's really that we try to live our life at N4, and even like in the name. So the N4 itself, the four is the little seed that was the partners, the four friends, the four colleagues, that basically started this. But the N really stands for, well, it was N4, the power of four. The N's actually the nucleus. The N's about the whole team. It's encompassing of our clients and of the businesses, and that's really what makes it all about. The four's just the little seed that started it, but everything else comes from the nucleus and the heart.
Love it, absolutely love it. It was a great way to finish the episode, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to say goodbye to our audience, and if you don't mind staying on just for a few minutes, I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone, and then I'm going to have a chat to you now. Allan, thanks again, much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, Dudley, as well. Thank you.
So thanks, Allan, and thank you everyone for joining us today on another episode of 100 Days and Beyond. It's what a wonderful journey, and what a wonderful person. I think Allan has highlighted that it's not just in a transaction. Changing people's lives, working with organizations are made up of people, and the impact and the positive nature of actually going out and doing good, doing your work, doing what you thoroughly enjoy, but doing so with a positive mindset and a positive outcome. And also that that saying about those who fail to plan to fail, and I think that probably sums it up in terms of one of the big takeaways there. But Allan was absolutely fantastic. But it's a lot more than just transactions, but knowing your stuff, having the right toolbox, having the right skills around the toolbox, and then being able to apply it in a way that brings people along with you to the end result. Thank you very much again, Allan. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of 100 Days and Beyond. Have a super day, super evening if you're in the UK, and we'll chat to you again.